This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause. And MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
This is your fighting fire with a wet matchstick leader, Fan Radio Network.
Sorry, KFAN.
And KFAN. That's KFAN.com. 2 minutes, 28 seconds past 3 Central Daylight Saving Time. Welcome back. It is indeed a Friday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a beautiful Friday of Memorial Day weekend afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro. I'm joined as always by the producer of the program. That is, of course, Justin Gard, and we are delighted that you are along for today's ride. Many of you are already, it's possible, checked out. Many of you are on the way to cabins you own and even imaginary cabins that you don't, as we've talked about over the years. But we're here. In fact, I'm so committed to the bit that I'll be live for Sunday sermons. And then I will be live from the Cage Target Center Skyway on Monday, Memorial Day, before, of course, Wolves and Oklahoma City game number 4. Is there an update on where you're going to be? Are you going to be able to be there? Or are you going to have to be where you are now?
Thanks to Brett Blakemore, I will be right next to you at the Cage, downtown Minneapolis, for Game 4
Impressive,
of the Western Conference Finals.
Blakemore, when does he not come through?
Very
When
rarely.
does Brett Blakemore not come through?
Very, very rarely.
That's very true, Davey. 100%. 100%. There are some people who want to say, I told you so. I picked the Wolves in 6. I know you picked the Wolves. I don't know if you picked the number of games.
Yeah, something like that.
Is the series over? I mean, has Oklahoma City won 4 games? I missed a couple of games.
They've won 2.
They've won 2. They're halfway there, and they've done it. Well, they've done it in authoritative fashion. There's not any question about that. And that's where fighting fire with a wet matchstick comes into the conversation, because the saying is fighting fire with far, correct? That's what,
yes.
And that's where somebody's got something going on you have to respond with something that is as lethal and potentially dangerous as what they have unleashed and uncorked on you, correct?
A tangential way to say it, if you want to get some, you got to bring some.
Is the same thing.
If you want to get some, you got to bring some.
I'm going to read you a quote, and I'm going to, well, let me read the quote first. Yeah, you can feel it. What happens is you can feel us string together stops. That's what's encouraging. And I think that's what's made us really good. Our team really enjoys playing defense and finds it very fun. And when we score, stop, the stops are what gets us going. We can play faster. We play confident. And then we're out there running and just hooping. Us enjoying getting stops is definitely the key to that. Now, I'm going to ask you, couldn't that quote have come from any of several Minnesota Timberwolves as recently as last year's playoff run, perhaps the Denver series, maybe even during sections of the series against the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors?
Sounded very familiar.
It does it not?
And I know who said it, so I'll let you unveil it.
That's, of course, the sad reality, because the player who said it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
The MVP.
The MVP, who played like it yesterday.
Yes,
again.
he did.
But here's, and I as much as there's going to be a lot of conversation of what happened to Julius Randle offensively, and we still can't hit threes, and what are we going to, the offense seemed to move better, but it still wasn't good enough. I'm going to keep harping on the inability, and I think it may be inability. I'm not even sure it's lack of trying. The inability to perhaps match the defensive level of excellence that has been attained by the Oklahoma City Thunder through these first two games. They've got a taste for what the Doberman defense represented for the Wolves a year ago. They do revel in it. And they have probably, most NBA insiders believe they have a minimum of 5 very good to great defensive individual players. They may even have more. And so when you boil down why the Wolves are in what appears to be a pretty damned untenable position right now, yeah, could the offense be better? Their execution issues, shot selection issues, just people being cold, missing open shots? Yeah, to a certain degree. But I'll still maintain the Wolves have not done nearly enough to match or even come approximating what Oklahoma City has done on defense and what has been the calling card for your Minnesota Timberwolves through basically this run last year and even this year. The Wolves, example, forced 8 turnovers yesterday, game 2. 8. The rest of the playoffs, we averaged double that. There were several games in earlier series where opposing teams were turning it over 21, 22 times a game. They're shooting 50%. And they're doing, they are, Oklahoma City's a bit of in both games, total. They are literally at 50% through 2 games. You don't have to be, I don't think, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to understand that that's not very good defense. That doesn't suggest you're taking much away from what Oklahoma City wants to do. Certainly not anywhere close to the degree that the Thunder defense has taken away several things that the Wolves like to do and made them have to work really hard to get what they have gotten. That's fairly clear, right? It's fairly obvious that there's a huge distinction there. Here's another thing that struck me. It's a 3-point shooting league. And yet, if you want to sort of break down the differences in game number 2, I believe from 2-point range, the thing called mid-range, which Oklahoma City does not thumb its nose at. They're one of the few teams that is not above mid-range shots, taking 2s. I think they shot something like, was it 65% in game 2? Somewhere right along there. I'll try to find the exact number. 63%.
Yeah, it was like 36 of 57 or something like that.
The Wolves calling card still is largely the three. They shot 28% from three. Now, even I can't do that math, but I got to believe if you shoot 63% from two, even though you get an extra point shooting from three, 28% of three, you're not going to catch up. You're not going to be able to keep pace with that. And they have found, Oklahoma City has found, and maybe this always existed and nobody was good enough to exploit it a year ago, or maybe we're just not as, again, committed defensively as we were when we were the Doberman defensive team. Kind of this soft, mid-range underbelly in our defense. And those are good shots, and they are often open shots. Largely, I would argue, uncontested shots. So I can't help but, as I said, wax nostalgic for the days when we were getting coached like that. From it could be Nikhil, it could have been Jaden, it could have been Naz Reid last year, could have been Mike Conley talking about how committed the Wolves are to the defensive bit. That's a big piece of what is being exposed here, and maybe this is going to be viewed as an all-time defense. Oklahoma City, I don't know. It may well be. But I have to believe, if you, again, go back to the first half of game one, if you can at least make them feel like they're going through the same slog you feel like you're being put through more often, then I think you have a chance to be in either or both of these games and even get back in the series now that the series has moved here. But it hasn't been that way. It has not been close to that way. They're just moving around, man. They're moving to their spots. They're sliding around pretty much. Now, again, we know how good an individual defender that Jaden can be, and there's some plays where, even yesterday, he blocked whose shot did he block? It was, I think, Gilgis. Yeah, Alexander.
From the top of the key.
It's a great block. So there's those individual moments where you go, wow, that's a nice defensive play. But it's not coordinated enough. It's not sustained enough. Regardless of the dysfunction of this offense, the gap between these two defenses is, I think, a very significant reason why we're in the position we're in. Because back in the day, we turned other teams over, and that's how we got some fast break points. That's how we got points off turnovers. And in this series, everybody knows the numbers. Off turnovers, we've been outscored by 33 points. That's a lot of points in a series in which you do not have that much margin for error.
And they improved with the turnovers last night, which is 14. Mm-hmm. But it was 22 points off 14 turnovers, which seems like a lot. And again, if you want to say forced, some of these can be, unforced, but they ended up with 8, which is... They keep the ball. And they're good. They are a good team about not turning the ball over. That's another one of their calling cards. FanandBigDeck.com want you to feel better if you're a Wolves fan. They want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our National Cash Contest. First keyword on this Friday is win, which the Wolves can't do right now. WIN. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Win. And
I got really this series and the condition the Wolves are in, reduced to 2 stretches of third quarters. One of which, this goes back to, I believe, game 1, we're outscored 20-6, and the other were outscored 23-7. And those both were in the third quarter.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And largely it's largely the difference in the total margin of victory.
That's it.
In in this series. It's been just two stretches that have left the Wolves with really no answers. Is it possible that we're going to look back, long lens, and say, the Wolves are or were an Aaron Gordon hammy injury away from reaching the NBA Finals? Might be a little dramatic, but it's something to think about. Because Denver, you can argue if Gordon was healthy, they might have been able to steal Game 7. And we want to always assume that because we've had Denver's number, we would have continued to have their number. I don't know if it's that automatic.
I'm with you there.
But I certainly don't view Denver as anywhere near as good a team defensively as or as consistently good defensively as Oklahoma City. But who knows? We'll never know. But that may well be the case. I view this series now as basically boiling down to this. I know nationally and for a lot of people here, it's over. Get the brooms. Don't bother. Those folks might be right. I'm not ready to say that. I'm ready to say we're seeing a step up in class. It really goes back to, I think, what I suspected, but although I didn't suspect that this meant that Wolves couldn't be even in this series by now, that we're not playing in California anymore, that whatever we think of our chances and whatever we think of the other Western Conference combatants, your challenges are going to be greater. You're going to have to play much better than you did in the first two rounds to knock off Oklahoma City, and I think we're seeing the extent of it. But to me, we're down to, as much as it's a cliche, tomorrow night's game. You
that's
obviously that's the season. You obviously have to win that game. Now, that doesn't yet mean you've saved the season, but it means then, as far as I'm concerned, I agree with the notion that then literally the season comes down to Game 4. Because I'm not somebody who says, well, just get on the board, and if you have to go back to Oklahoma City down 3-1, all the pressure will be on them, because if you beat them, then you're back here only down 3-2. I don't buy it against Oklahoma City. I think you have to win both. I think you have to win tomorrow night, and if you do win, then to me, the winner of Game 4, in that eventuality, the winner of Game 4 will be the winner of the series. I really believe that. I think if they can split it, if they can actually come back and split, that will mean by definition they figured something out, a seismic break in the stranglehold that Oklahoma City seemed to have on everything, right? But it all starts with tomorrow. And if you lose tomorrow, then obviously we will probably be talking post-mortem by maybe as early as Tuesday's show, or the Cage will be previewing.
We'll be doing a preemptive funeral,
and then follow that up on the day after.
What's surprising to me? Well, not surprising. Well, I guess it is a little surprising that the Wolves seem surprised that they can't take any possessions or stretches of the game off. And I'm not saying that they're purposely mailing it in, but not understanding the urgency of which they literally have to do everything.
Yeah.
Because Oklahoma City understands that urgency, it seems like. Every cut seems harder. Every pass seems harder. The only thing that seems kind of nonchalant is SGA, because he's so effortless,
yes,
right?
Exactly. That's the word.
He's moving at a different speed than everybody else, but he's so fluid and so effortless in it that he's got total control of everything. A big reason why they only had 8 turnovers again last night and never turned the ball over. But every little detail matters against Oklahoma City, and I'm stunned
start to finish
that the Wolves, first of all, I was a little annoyed even when we got the rhetoric from, the guys that cover the team, like Hein and Johnny Athletic, that said, well, the Wolves are kind of a team that needs to work themselves into a series and understand what they're going up against before they kind of understand it. It's like, I understand that to a point, and they clearly have not
against Golden State or the Lakers.
Right. They could afford to do that against those teams.
Guys,
Against this team, it's just stunning to me that even early last night, when again they're playing very well in the first half, Edwards is getting to the rim, they're shooting the ball
quick
better,
decisions,
yes,
getting downhill, posting up people where they're already down low, close to the basket. All those things were much better.
But then they try a weird lob pass to Julius Randle that gets stolen. They in the second half, they try to throw a weird cross-court pass. Jaden McDaniels tries, and maybe the dagger moment, a little pitch pass behind him to Ant, and J-Dub is just right there to grab it. It's like they don't understand that OKC doesn't allow you to ever be casual.
No.
And if you're going to win the series, you just can't have stretches like that. Even if you don't, I should say, they might still beat you, but you give yourself no chance when you take quick shots, when you don't get back on defense the right way, and when you're casual with the ball.
Here's my, at least so far in this series, other major miscalculation going into the series. I thought, on the basis of what we had seen from both players, that the Wolves had an excellent chance, even if Edwards didn't win the matchup with SGA. A great chance did the Wolves have to win the number 2 player matchup for each team. And that's because they call him J-Dub.
Yeah, I think they shorten it to Dub.
Dub Williams, whatever.
Yeah.
Had struggled mightily through much of the Denver series. A large part of the reason why it was a 7-game series. Randall had ascended to a place that he never had before in the postseason. Nationally, people were lauding him like
he was called a mini LeBron James.
Yes.
On what day was that? Tuesday.
So I'm saying, okay, I'll take my chances based on not the regular season Williams, who was great, but the Williams who, for whatever reason, was not shooting well, maybe lost a little confidence in the old, it's postseason, and maybe he's still not ready for this moment. He's completely reversed it in this tournament, or at this round.
After the first half.
Of the tournament, after the first half.
Of
Game 1. And in Game 2, it was 26 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 0 turnovers, I believe, if I remember that stat correctly. And Julius Randle was so far in Finchie's doghouse, and he's the ultimate Randle guy.
Right.
He didn't even play him.
Very telling.
In the fourth quarter, which told us a lot. And so that was another miscalculation. Because if you go on regular season, you could say, well, the Randle run's cute, but this guy's been great offensively and defensively all year. Well, now we've I think learned that sooner or later, if you have those habits that you've developed over the course of an entire season, they'll usually come back if you stay, I guess, true to who you are mentally. And he was a tremendous player. He might have been it's hard to argue with SGA, but they had such great contributions from 1 and 2. And when, again, your margin is reduced for all the obvious reasons, and you're still, this isn't really complicated now. I projected one of the members of the ant colony would reemerge, at least one, maybe 2. I didn't like Dante at all again yesterday.
Terrible.
He got benched. He didn't play in the fourth quarter at all either.
And it's not even that they don't help. It's that they do things that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
As much as you want to call it a flop at the end of the first half on the moving screen.
Oh, yes.
When you have the ball, you got to know who you're going up against.
Yes.
You know that they're going to be a little. You can't just run over the guy. You can't put yourself in that situation.
No. Yeah, he extended for no reason, I think, in that situation. Naz Reid, still
non-existent,
has not arrived in this series. And Nikhil, I thought, fourth quarter was very good.
Yeah.
He kind of emerged. Maybe that's the biggest hope for the Wolves in terms of the colony, that he discovered something. And what the Wolves are going to want to believe is we kind of maybe found something in the fourth. Because the fourth quarter, they cut well into the lead. They did have a chance to get it to single digits, turn the ball over on that occasion near midcourt, just past midcourt. The lineup I think we were going with then was Edwards, Conley, Naw, McDaniels, and Reed, I believe was the lineup.
That sounds right.
And so obviously you ain't playing Rudy, you ain't playing Julius, and you ain't playing DiVincenzo. Is that a lineup that you can put back out there and see if because the ball did seem to move, but you can't, I think, assume too much because they're nursing what was the lead, 24?
Yeah.
And, human nature, even for them being what it is, okay, you cut into it some. You made it semi-interesting, But were you ever really in a position to steal it? Probably not. And maybe in that situation, the home team relaxed a little bit too.
Yeah.
Is it so it's a semi-garbage time situation in which it's hard to know whether you can really pay attention to the possibility that you discovered lightning there or electricity. That's something. It's certainly, I think, a lineup worth throwing out there again. And let's see, see if we can do it when the game is still to be won. But it was very, very, very disappointing game. And yeah, I think for several reasons I underestimated a team that now I was reminded. I don't know how many playoff games they played. Who did they play first round?
Memphis.
And that series ended in 4.
Ran right through them.
So 4 plus 7, 11 plus 2. So they played 13 postseason games.
Yep.
82 regular season games. So that's 95 games. I think I can do that math.
It's a lot of math on the fly here.
95 games. Last night was their 60th victory over the course of those 95 games, in which they outscored the opposition by double digits, by more than 10 points. And you'd mentioned, I think yesterday, their margin of victory for the season period is the biggest in history. So again, what I think we're learning is that even if they didn't have the pedigree, they're damn good and they're damn committed and they're damn serious. I think a lot of it, don't you think, is we can't waste this. We've worked our butts off to cultivate whatever we think we have here that's unusual on the basis of 68 victories and the unusual mix we have. And this is supposed to be our time. And we're not going to squander this now. Are you kidding me? All the toil of establishing ourselves at that level with all those wins, 14 losses, of course, this season. And that's how they're playing. They're playing like we're not going to squander any bit of the opportunity that we have. And that's why I don't think the Wolves can count on anything at the start of Game 3, that they're going to relax a little bit now, whatever the case. I'm sure they're going to expect the Wolves to give them their best shot because this is the series, but I don't think there's any reason to believe that they're going to go, okay, we're fine if we can afford to lose one game. I don't think that's the way they play.
You want to know what's really depressing? And this shows you my state of mind last night because I looked this up. They have 37, talking about the Thunder, $37 million available in salary cap space next year. They are $16 million away from the first apron, $28 million away from the second apron. I bring it all up to say they're not going to have the same financial issues that other teams in this
win
position
titles or go for titles
have been, right?
Yes,
They're not. The Wolves are going to be under the second apron, I think, next year, if I looked at Spot Track right. But they're not in Phoenix's situation. They're not, go down the list of the other teams that have, Golden State, that have spent a bunch of money. They have been extremely well managed, and it looks like are going to be a problem for a while with most of the guys that you saw last night.
100%.
So sleep well tonight, everybody.
You got that going for you.
Their window appears to be very open at the moment.
Well, other than if they get unlucky with an injury. You're right. They don't have, usually we think you win a title, and man, it's going to be hard to keep all these salaries. Hard to keep this team together. Hard to keep this team intact. And what you're telling us is they're in a position where not only can they keep it intact, they might be able to add talent. Do they have anybody's number one besides their own? I think they have like 15 more number ones the next 5 years. But I don't know if they have anybody else's this year, or if that was based on the lottery, whatever. Somebody will be able to.
Let me just look it up real quick. So they have 2 number ones next year.
Let me ask you another question about, I've talked with Johnny about this stat before, and I'm still skeptical of its significance. But then there are other people who say, no, it's an indicator. It's a tool. For years and years, basketball refused to make a big issue out of the plus minus. Mm-hmm. The way, for example, plus minus has been in hockey forever. But in basketball, it was certainly easy to get. It wasn't like it was a difficult stat to glean, but nobody really used it. Nobody really, and my assumption was part of the reason was a belief that it didn't translate well to the game of basketball, or that it could be misleading in the game of basketball. Because the plus minus stat that's getting all the attention right now, Edwards has had terrible plus minuses in both games. I think it was the worst in the team in game 1. I don't think it was the worst in the team in game
second
two.
To worst.
Second worst? Okay.
Dante was out there for the worst.
Which is not
minus 22 for Ant, minus 27 for DDV.
And meanwhile, Conley, I think we're like a plus 60 when Mike Conley is on the floor. Now, we all want to believe, nod our head and say, yeah, it's Mike Conley. Steadying hand. That's why you want him. That's why you can't just evaluate him on the basis of whether he's hitting threes, right? And I get that's part of what he does, but I'm still not sure we can make these grandiose. Because in effect, what that seems to be saying is Conley should play 48 minutes.
Right.
Or something like that. And I think it's got to be a combination that is greater than that. Because if I watched the way Edwards played this game, I don't think my mind says, or my eyes would say, he was a minus player. Now, in the third quarter, you could argue, I think he ended up with 8 points in the third, but 4 of them were when the game was pretty much lost. They were already down like 20 or 18, and I think he got 4 free throws late, or 4 points late.
He did seem very absent in that third.
He did.
Yeah.
So, I that's not a plus, I would say, for sure. But I certainly don't view him necessarily as a minus. So then does it go back to, well, it just depends on who you're playing with, and that's why the stat can sometimes be a little bit misleading. And I think what has tended to happen as we get more accustomed to the stat is whatever point we're trying to make, if it works with the minus or the plus regarding the player we're trying to either praise or rip, then we will use it. If it doesn't fit, we will ignore it and say, well, I'm not going to worry about that stat this time because it doesn't fit the point I'm trying to make.
For last night in particular, just that fourth quarter that you already talked about where Oklahoma City is probably not as sharp as they needed to be and the Wolves are basically making the last desperate run.
Right.
That, I'm sure, accounted for at least 10 points of Conley's plus minus.
That's true.
At least half of them. So but they've got a Colony problem, though. That's what's going to be interesting. Finch is very patient with guys. We know that, right? Just historically, throughout seasons. We talked about it with Randall this year. Obviously, he ran out of patience with Julius last night. I'm curious, long-term, what the other Conley is thinking. Because
decisions he has to make.
Well, just
moving forward.
Everybody loves Naz Reid, right? Everybody does. Great story. 6th man of the year last year. The towels, the tattoos, the honk if you love Naz Reid at the pizza place in Minneapolis. The bobbleheads, it's all wonderful. But this is a very big sample size now, the last 2 seasons.
Yes.
Of
it's concerning.
Playoff no-shows.
Yeah.
Where if he's going to be, because a lot of people go back 3 months. Julius Randle should be benched. Naz Reid should be starting. People are saying, well, he's got this player option that he's going to opt out on, and he's going to want a bunch more money. The Wolves aren't going to let that happen. They're going to sign him long-term. As good as he's been, and I'm not disputing that, and important as he's been the last few years, these are like massive no-shows for a guy that, if you think you have 8 starters, is probably your 6th starter, right?
Well,
maybe your 3rd or 4th most important player. And he's been dreadful in the playoffs, saved a couple of fourth quarters against the Lakers.
And he, too, we're talking about Naz, correct?
Yes.
So on the one hand, this actually might make some of the decisions easier. In all honesty, about how you go, what trades you might consider, what ways you might want to go, because suddenly you say, well, it's great what he did last year as a 6th man of the year, what we think he's capable of, but if we're not getting that in the postseason, we might have to make some hard decisions. Somebody's going to have to go. Right. Anyway, this might help make some of those decisions easier. I'll also add on Naz. I thought, and I talked about this at the start of the show yesterday. You can't get caught up in the victimhood of whatever you think of SGA. And Naz did constantly. He was constantly talking to refs. And, we had that little skirmish with Jaden, in which he ends up just shoving SGA. And here's the problem with doing that. I don't think it has any impact on Shea at all.
It does not.
I don't think he.
It does not.
I don't think he's that weak-minded mentally. I'm a little bit ruffled. And it did look like we don't know what to do with you, so I'm just going to shove you because I got nothing. Because I'm mad. He definitely got hooked early.
Yep.
There's no question. But again, if that's your response to it, it comes off as we can't stop him, so I'm just going to shove him to the ground because I'm going to be a baby about it. I don't know what else to do. So they got caught up in that, and I think it's hard not to come out of that from going the old he's in their heads, at least in a couple of the players. And that's another sign of frustration and surrender that you don't know what to do. But on the larger point you're making, I think it has to be factored in making the hard decisions, because the postseason is ultimately what it's all about, right? So to that extent, yes, you can't. I don't think Tim Connelly can ignore what Naz has done. Now, maybe you're going to try to put him in a different role next year. We're back to Rudy has been fairly non-existent in this series.
Right.
And
a detriment offensively.
Correct.
Big time.
I mean, both of their... Well, they play two big men. We technically play one, right? Because Randall, you don't really think of as a big man, even though he's strong, right? He's not really a center.
Right.
They play two guys, and they've both been effective in various ways. See, that's another thing. You look at... That's not going on much of a limb to say, this is an extremely well-run team. What happened to them last year in the playoffs? The feeling was Dallas beat them in part because they weren't big enough. They weren't quite tough enough and physical enough inside to match the Dallas trio of big men, right? And so what did they say? Well, we got to get a little tougher. So we're going to add, who do we get from the Knicks? Hartenstein. And then we're going to go out and we're going to get another really good, tough defender, the guy with the...
Caruso.
Yeah, Caruso with the headband. And so that's a team that was open enough, despite their success, to say, what do we got to do? What do we need to add? And they added it. And I will still say, my one criticism of Tim Connelly has been pretty consistent. We don't have a dead cinch shooter on the perimeter, on the wing. That's not going to be streaky. Every shooter has streaks, but if it's an open shot, they're going to make it. They may not be able to do some other things as well as you'd like. We still don't have that. And so I thought we knew that at the end of last season. And maybe we had limited moves that we could make. But to me, that's got to be moving forward, whether they get back in this series or not. You have to get a real shooter. Because Dante is too streaky to be called that guy.
Yep,
right?
Very much.
Nas,
same thing. Nas, same thing.
Nas especially. So you have to find, do what, because that's the impressive part about Oklahoma City. They did not rest on their laurels. Hey, we're awfully good. We're just going to run it back. And no, they went out, partly because they had the flexibility to do it, and they added two significant pieces to their team that are also very much front and center about why they're in a position now to take the next step. And Holmgren, who can frustrate me on the rim, because some of his finishing at the rim, I think, is a little soft. But then again, he was very good, and he's active. You can't help but notice him. We're not noticing Rudy in this series very much.
Not in the right way.
Not in the right way.
Because they're throwing it to him in the lane. He's having trouble with it. He's had some absolute adventures at the rim, unfortunately. I heard Alan Horton with Charch today. As we were driving to Enough Said.
Yes.
Not together, separately, but you and I were probably both there.
Yes.
And he had the stat. The Wolves started this postseason run, I think it was 21 of 42 in that game one against LA. Just knocking down every three, right? Every three was going. It's like Oprah. You get a three, you get a three. Nas is laughing. Everybody's smiling. It's unbelievable. They're shooting 31% from three in the 11 games since. That's streaky.
Yeah.
It's actually not even streaky. It's just bad.
Yeah.
Because there hasn't been enough, and they've gotten away with it in the first two rounds. We know why, but against this team, you just can't do it.
You have to hope, like I said, for game three, that just a lot of stuff comes together. And you have one of those games where you take 50 threes and you make 27 of them. Which is, it's something that dramatic, I think, has to take place. I hate nurturing that habit, because I still like the offense better. I liked the offense a lot better yesterday.
They played well in the first half last night.
But again, it sooner or later, that defense is so dogged and so determined, and so much like it was, I think, more really a year ago with the Wolves, when it was the number one defense last year, that they're going to wear you down. They're going to wear you out. And I mentioned the quote from Nah after the game. He had something to do. We might be able to find it later, the exact quote for top five, where he basically said, we're a team that over the course of this season, even postseason, where we feel like we can wear the other team down. And he said, you can't do that with these guys. Like, he's saying, wear them down where 1 9 or 10 minute stretch can put them away, or take the fight out of the other team. And his point was, we get you. Maybe to me, what he was saying without saying was, we're kind of used to that. We're kind of used to the other team then crumbling. And his point was, they ain't going to crumble because if you take the pedal off the metal defensively, they're going to burn you. They may have a 2-minute stretch, a 2-minute lapse. They ain't going to have a 10-minute lapse, and they ain't going to just cry uncle when you try to put your boot on their throat. And he kind of almost seemed to acknowledge maybe we weren't ready for that or didn't quite understand how sustained what we were doing was going to have to be.
You can't have any slip-ups, but what's disappointed me is I watched a lot of that Denver series, and part of the reason why you and others, probably me included, thought that Randall could win his matchup against Dub, even though they're not necessarily matched up against each other, just the number 2. The Thunder role players the last couple of years, their ant colony, have not been great in clutch moments all the time. And even in the Denver series, you saw them win some games because guys miss shots.
Yes.
Britt Robson had a great tweet last night. He didn't have the right all the numbers out there, but when they get a 10-point lead, everybody's shooting percentage goes up for them because they're free and easy. They're loose. We saw it again last night.
Yes.
They're banging open threes. Paycom Center, whatever it's called, is going nuts. We haven't even allowed them to get tight and remember that, well, we haven't really been here all that much, like in a fourth quarter, like Denver did. And that's why Denver won a couple of games, because they did miss shots late in the fourth quarter, but the Wolves can't even get there.
Man.
They're playing 12 minutes at a time. They're playing all 4 quarters throughout this postseason, and I would say throughout the season, we have been able to wear teams down to where we put them away at times. This is a team, and you can see by their record, where you're not going to put them away. And you kind of got to play 4 rounds at a time. If it's a knockout, it's going to be a TKO. And so I think that's the main difference.
That is profound basketball commentary from a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And the cynic, I guess, could say, well, why don't you play better, more consistently? But he's crystallized, I think, what the Wolves are dealing with here. They have stepped up in class, I want to say, not 1, but probably 2 rungs.
Yeah, they've leveled up.
From what they were dealing with in rounds 1 and 2 with the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. And as I said, maybe we have further evidence, if this thing continues to play out with Okie City dominating the series, that it's actually possible that Joker's underrated.
Yeah.
Because you could say,
right.
Well, we already know he could be MVP every year if you want him to be. And if he's not, you might just be bored. But beyond that, given the lack of depth Denver has, lack of shooting on the wing that Denver has, and the injuries that they were enduring, the fact that he helped carry that series to 7, even though he was very disappointing in Game 7 himself, indicates once again that the guy is really, really good. Seth in Brooklyn Park alleges that the Thunder have 13 first-round picks till through 2031.
That's possible.
Which makes sense, because that's 6-7 years of picks right there. And they got 13 first-rounders. That is, that's pretty good. That's, but, on the other hand, you could say, well, as much praise as their management has been, was it Sam Presti?
Yep.
He's lauded, right? But the comeback to it is, okay, Sam, got to win a title one of these times, don't you? Got to win one. And who knows? We'll see. This might well be the one.
In 2026, they have potentially 6 first-round draft picks. Potentially, because there's a lot of swaps and there's protected. There's a lot of craziness there.
This is Friday, right? So this story broke Tuesday. It's worth at least an acknowledgement as a. Can you find the follow-up sounder? Do we still have it in our system?
Yeah, give me a second.
All right, a follow-up to a story we've covered. I think Fox 9 has been largely covering this story, and then some other stations as well. Remember that neighborly dispute over the driveway basketball hoop in St. Louis Park?
I do remember that.
That on Tuesday, it appears, it turned into a legal brawl. And there was, endless conversation about it because everybody could relate to it on one level or another. Well, on Tuesday, a Hennepin County judge dismissed a lawsuit that had been brought by the family that was complaining about, I think the couple actually, that was complaining about the hoop next to in the driveway next to them. They, in that lawsuit, had sought to prevent that family's children from playing basketball using their own driveway hoop. The kids in question, Everest, 9, and Elliot, 12. And apparently the family celebrated the dismissal shortly before tip-off in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals against Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm assuming that by the third quarter, they said, let's go shoot baskets.
I was going to say, they probably did it the whole night. They probably had a big watch party.
That could very well be true.
Put a screen outside, played a little horse.
So there you have it. By the way, for the record, your guy, Anthony Edwards, gifted the family tickets to a game at Target Center earlier this season, according to the StarTribune.com story. And the Chiefs' chief communications officer also gave them tickets. So I don't know. Hopefully this ends the story, right? I mean, hopefully. Parker Fox is in this story. Do you know the Parker Fox connection?
I know that he wanted to be connected with him so he could get him some gear and some different stuff.
He gave the brothers his signed size 14 Nikes and another pair of size 16 shoes signed by teammate Dawson.
Love it.
Garcia. So
he also promised tickets to a Gopher game next year at Williams Arena when he comes back for his 14th year of college basketball.
So is he definitely can't come back this time?
I don't think he can come back.
Can he petition? Has he tried petitioning?
Honestly, if you sue the NCAA right now, you're going to win.
They're running scared.
You can
most
get
of the time.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
In any case, I would say all's well that ends well, unless there's a part of me that says the other couple has been so stubborn on this issue that, and I think they're both lawyers or have experience with the law, that they may have like 4 or 5 other tricks up their sleeve. Or maybe finally, is it possible that they just give up the ghost and actually, maybe shoot some baskets with them?
What I want to see him do is maybe the Timberwolves could give them some of the thunder sticks that they put behind the baskets for free throws.
Yes.
And then to express their annoyance that the boys 9 and 12 are just trying to shoot some baskets in their own driveway, they could just do the brickin' for chicken thunder sticks. Maybe the boys will get mad and then just go inside and then they win.
Then they win again. I hope that's
their only play, I think, at this point.
Text me. I know we've got neighbors nearby at St. Louis Park who've texted us before because that ruling, I think, was announced Tuesday. Today's Friday. So is everything settling down a little bit? And like you say, if you're the family that won the case, how gracious are you in victory? Are you gracious enough you say, okay, just don't add to it, play in the driveway when you want to? Or do you, as you say, have an all-night basketball party to just stick the needle in?
Bring John Barry from Target Center, the Wolves MC. Bring Crunch.
Bring in the mega sound system, the whole bit. Yeah, I wonder how far that will go. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open at 64686. We'll have Ben Gessling in about 30 minutes, so some football conversation then, and Lavelle on a little bit of everything, including stealing our material. Did you see that? Did you happen to notice the Lavelle theft that took place in a recent column?
No, he wrote about Canterbury today, I noticed.
This was a previous one. Oh. We'll talk about that when we talk.
Okay, have you heard about this? Last year, Degree changed the formula for their Cool Rush deodorant. Their fans rebelled and wanted the old scent back. And Degree, listen, that doesn't happen often.
They admitted that they effed up and are bringing the original Cool Rush scent back. And it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. There's a reason it's the #1 men's antiperspirant. And it's back in Walmart, Target, and other stores for under $4.
So try it and see what the fuss is about. Head to your local stores to try the OG Cool Rush for yourself.
Wasabi Technologies is purpose-built to free businesses from skyrocketing storage costs and unpredictable egress fees from those old and top-heavy legacy providers. You know, the big guys. Wasabi is the go-to provider for professional and collegiate sports teams around the world. From Wasabi's AI-enabled intelligent media storage, Wasabi Air, to the industry's only cloud storage service with triple protection against cyber criminals, Wasabi is driving innovation in data storage. All for up to 80% less than those other guys. Try them out for free at wasabi.com.